GG Alcock, when I interviewed you last time, lots of people saw the interview here in the studio, including Clem Sunter, who got hold of me and said, no, he's so inspired. He said he just has to support what you're doing. And he suggested as well that actually what we need to be doing at BizNews is featuring successful township entrepreneurs. You've done this, you've done quite a lot of that in your books.
Yeah, in fact, over lockdown, I even wrote a series called Excavating Silence, which was the kind of concept behind oral histories are always hidden, and the stories of these guys are hidden outside of that space. So, yeah, it's really about telling those stories.
So I've asked you to help us every month bring in somebody you know.
Yeah.
And you've got Rafilwe here today. Do you want to tell us a little about him before we introduce him?
Yeah, so Rafilwe and I connected over lockdown because I was just inspired by his story of basically starting a bakery in a place called White City in Soweto in a backyard of a little house. White City is famous for being one of the roughest, toughest parts of Soweto.
Where is it in Soweto? What part?
It's kind of on Elias Mitswili. It's near Dobson. It's kind of between Dobsonville and Jabavu and so on. Down the road from Regina Mundi Cathedral.
Got it. The Catholic, a very famous Catholic
that's
church
right.
with the bullet holes in the ceiling still.
That is, yeah. So anyway, I connected with Rafilwe because I wanted to tell a story. And the thing about it that was great, not only that he had this amazing bakery and had gone from a corporate job basically and bought bakery equipment while he was working until he could start. But the thing about it was that with COVID, he lost a lot of his business. And so he kind of pivoted that business to moved it onto Facebook and got people to WhatsApp him their pin locations. And he had a group of about 6 or 7, I can't remember the exact number, guys with trolleys who then delivered, some of them walking up to 15 kilometers a day, delivering bread door to door, and managed to kind of grow his business after the initial shock of lockdown and continue to grow the business. And so that was just a great story about kind of pivoting and survival.
Rafilwe, you're not Zulu.
I'm multilingual, obviously, in my township. I can speak Zulu.
But this Zulu guy.
Yeah, when I speak to him, obviously, spoken Zulu, and I was a little bit puzzled. And I had to Google to check their face. I was like, okay, does it make sense or what?
But your story is inspirational on many, many counts. But I want to start with something that's quite universal. Often, successful entrepreneurs are people who start young. Now, you started real young.
Yeah. I was raised by a grandmother, she was the provider. At the time, obviously, I didn't know my father. I'm 32 years old now. I just met my father last year. So now, the type of home that I'm coming from, my grandmother has been somebody that is always teaching me about the future. But though I was young, I never understood some of the things, because at the time when she speaks to me, she'll make example like, one day I'll be gone, you must be able to. One day I'll be dead, you must be able to. So because of I was a disciplined young kid, almost everything that she said was a little bit making sense at the time. Now, when I was 8 years old, we moved to Brett, Northwest. And then when we get there, obviously, she was not working and stuff. And she wanted ways of how we can survive. And we're coming from Soweto. So quickly, she took advantage of the area. And then she realized that there are no fat cakes around here. And then she started baking fat cakes every morning.
Just explain what a fat cake is.
Fat cake. Makuinya in township, but which is a dough that is going to be just fried in a cooking oil. Then it's going to be shiny and browny, a little bit appealing.
I call it the croissant of the townships, because it's the same breakfast with a polony slicer or cheese slice and so on.
Then quickly we took advantage of that situation. Every morning before I go to school, I will sell fat cakes around the area before I go to school, and I'll come back and go to school. So that's the first business that I was indirectly taught.
So what time?
5 o'clock in the morning.
5 a.m. So you've been an early riser from a very young age.
Pure. And before I go to school, I think I was doing grade 3, if I'm not mistaken. Then I was selling fat cakes, come back, obviously check the money, and that's being the activity of the morning. And then quickly, the second business that my grandmother taught me was to sell maize meal to the bus station. So those are the type of business that I started young. Then quickly I I liked money and I enjoyed having money. And then I went a little bit independent, bought my own cigarette and started selling. Then I was sleeping in the kitchen because it was a 2-room house. Cigarette is something people who smoke, obviously, they understand the craving of cigarette. Somebody will knock at my door, I think 1:30. My nickname used to be called Small because I was young. And they'll knock and buy cigarette and stuff. So now, fast forward to that, when I completed my matric in 2008, moved back to Gauteng, which is Soweto, I came over with the mind of that I want to seek out future for myself. And I was not really much interested in going to tertiary at the time because I felt like I was solidified enough to go on the street on my own, type of a thing. I had a passion for education, but my education at the time, I felt like I'm prepared to really approach life the way it is. And I went on the street, hustled like almost every young kid at the township, started buying things like secret socks and sell and get that much profit and stuff, printing the t-shirts and stuff. So during that process, that's where I came across the Bidvest learnership for travel and hospitality. And I went for it. That's where I was molded, I think, in my personal understanding, to be molded to understand corporate environment, to be a better person.
Bidvest?
Yeah, Bidvest.
That's an interesting process. How big is it?
It's massive.
No, I mean Bidvest, but the academy.
I think the learnerships, they partner with SETA, which is Skill Enterprise Sector, something to do with that. But at the time, it was under tourism and hospitality. And the funny part, I never did none of these things from my grade 12 and stuff. But when I get to the HR, I think I sold myself enough. She was interested in me, and I enrolled with Bidvest. I did very well. Then I spent 5 to 6 years.
But it's a very entrepreneurial company, Bidvest, with Brian Joffe having started it. So I can imagine that you would have appealed, being an entrepreneur yourself.
At the interview at the time, I was the only one without a diploma or any tertiary qualification. Everybody had a diploma, and then they wanted about 5 people. But I was like, no, I can't be stopped from doing what I think I'm going to be doing. Then with the HR, I think I made myself an appealing individual.
So you got the job. Now, that's a big deal, GG, in South Africa with high formal unemployment.
Yeah.
It's quite a big deal to have a job.
Absolutely. And you kind of would expect you want to hold on to that job for the rest of your days.
And Rafilwe, you didn't.
When it started, it was fine because we were wearing formals and stuff, and I started becoming a charming individual. But
did you wear a tie?
Yeah, I like ties. I like being formal, polish the shoes and stuff because that's an office. Within a period of 1 year, obviously, we'll graduate, and then the company enrolled with me, then I got a full-time job. But I think I could feel that I was a little bit one foot in because of much of what I think I am was a little bit cutted off because I'm a person who like to be expressive and have my own opinions. I have too much questions to ask at a time. I have too much views and I started paying attention to myself. But obviously, with the office, I'm starting to grow maturely and understand the corporate environment, what this life consists of, such thing. And then my appetite for life started changing a little bit, meaning my activities would be like reading books a little bit. Because of I'm working at the corporate office, you must be aligned with what's happening globally in terms of business or tourism and hospitality, almost everything connected to each other. Then with that, I grew as an individual because of I will start listening to talk radio shows like 702 and stuff. So much of what is going on, it will be easy for me to really access. Then that's where the maturity level started kicking in. But with the office, I started doing my business again. I will buy Archer from some woman in the township and start selling in the office.
Archer, that's a spicy
mango.
Mango spicy salad type of a thing. Then I'll sell it in the office. And I started making money. Those t-shirts that I did before I got the learnership, I started selling again in the office. I will brand for people. Somebody will be like, no, write my name here. I will do such thing. During my lunchtime, I'll go quickly to downtown Joburg, do my thing and come back. The other business that I did within the office, I sold Kellogg's, the cornflakes. Because before there's a package, I think it's 1.2 kg. At the time, it was not popular. And then when I passed Cambridge outlet, I realized this thing is massive and it can be appealing to people. And I bought it and came in and make it a sample to everybody. That, no, guys, there's somebody that I know who has this thing.
Are you good at maths? Because buying 1.2 kgs and then repackaging it into smaller amounts, you got to know your margins.
I'm good with markup pricing. With maths, I'm a little bit, But at the time, with the size of that thing, to me it was appealing that this thing is cheap. If I can be like putting an additional 45 rand, people will buy. And quickly they jump on it. And then when you get the bonuses, we bought, I think, 20 packets of those Kellogg's, and I sold in the office.
When you got the bonuses, then you reinvested in your hustle,
exactly.
I suppose, at the side.
And then I sold those cornflakes and I started making money again.
So fast forward, Gigi said earlier, you should have held on to that job forever. That's the dream of millions of South Africans, to have a formal job, and yet you took a different path.
I think I'm a very inquisitive person or curious. At the time, I questioned my future because that's how I was taught. That's how I was raised. My grandma used to tell me, when you do this thing, where are you going to end with your future, type of a thing. So when she passed on, I think when I was 21 at the time, prior to that, when I was 15 years old, she told me that when you get to 20, I may die. So chances are you're going to be alone. So make sure that you're not going to do stupid mistakes. One, don't depend much on your relative or family, because your mother passed on a long time ago when we were 11. So it's me and you, which is family. So you're going to be alone. So make sure everything that I told you, you're going to apply it as it is. So I was a kid that...
She was a wise woman.
Yeah, and I started realizing now that I was privileged. As much as I didn't have much of other kids they may have in terms of privileges, but the type of mentor and the tutoring that I got at a very young age was a very privileged one. But at the time, I thank God because I was a very disciplined kid. I could hear and understand what she says. And then I was skeptical to do naughty things at the time because of that thing would be like, hey, that woman said something. This may be my downfall. And even at the time, even now, that's the discipline that I had at a very young age. So at my age, obviously, there are certain things that may be perceived that we very quick when it comes to women, alcohol, and things like that. But that's not how I was raised. So that discipline that was instilled in me, still running within me, even now, because of I achieved or I've seen a lot of things that are positive in my life with that discipline. So, and then I started going back to business office. But at the time, I could feel my office atmosphere for me. Hey, man. It doesn't give me the satisfaction that I like. But I did smallanyana part-time course with Tamelin, doing sales and marketing, and then I started understanding that this is my room. I like speaking, I like selling, I like being expressive, I like taking chances.
And you couldn't do that in Bidvest?
At the time, obviously, if the company pays for me, obviously I had to pay back the company with me spending certain period of years. Or if I leave the company, I have to pay them with money. So I started with my salary paying for my fees because I was 1 foot in a corporate office. I could feel like anytime I can leave this place.
Now, you're famous now because of your bakery.
I think the business is famous.
You've been interviewed by Bloomberg, SABC, Al Jazeera. I mean, you are now a role model, no doubt, to many other people. How did you told us earlier about the vet cook with your granny, with your gogo. How did you then go into making bread? Where did that inspiration come from?
When I was in the office, I was learning a lot because I come across many professional people from different walks of life. So I knew I didn't have much of a tertiary education, but that doesn't stop me from being educated, from getting to conversate with anyone. So the hunger for success and education was extreme because there are many ways of getting education. You can be around people who know much. That's another process of getting education, professional education or tertiary education. So I started listening too much to talk radio shows, 702 at the time. And then I like Bruce Wisfield quite a lot. And then he can interview CEO of anything. And I was like, okay, now I have access of getting solid information about business. When they speak about stocks and things like that, I'll just Google quickly and align myself. And, such things were giving me much pride that, I understand what somebody has said about business, So I think back in 2016, I just forgot who is it that they interviewed, but it was somebody coming from economy side of a thing. Then he spoken about how the price of bread is going to be going up, things like that. But at the time, as I was doing my side businesses, I was still wanting something that I can put myself into full-time, something that can grow and expand. But I was a little bit unsure what is it. But when he speaks about bread, and then the appetite just kicks me from there. I think it was around April that, okay, this is something that I can pay attention to. The reality of it is that I never did any research at the time because I'm not that type of person. I'm not a careful individual. Realistically,
You're disciplined,
taking
though,
chances.
yeah. When something kicks me, I just
So you started buying baking equipment.
yes,
All right.
yeah. And then I just checked with the bakery suppliers that, okay, for me to bake certain number of loaves, how much amount of money that may be needed. And then we know the banks won't fund you for a startup idea. But I was like, no, I'm a full-timer. Then I can take a personal loan. What interest and stuff, I don't care about.
To a bank. Did you go to a bank?
Yeah, I went to a bank.
As a personal loan?
As a personal loan.
You weren't asking for startup capital from them?
And I left Bidvest at the time. I've worked for other travel agency company. And with that type of company that I was working, the people were pushed to enroll with the company to get the corporate courses, but only aligned to tourism and hospitality. And I knew at the time that this is not my type of path. I want to go this other way. So me and my superior or my team leader at the time, we were having some sort of a conflict because I don't want to study this thing that they give it to us. So I was pushed to move very quickly because I can see my office time is going to go down. I may be fired because of my focus now is no longer in the office. And the process at the time, I remember on the day, because I was fired, the reality of life is that I was fired. The same day that I was fired, I called a lady from, should I name the bank?
Of course.
Capitec. I called a lady from Capitec. I was like, hey man, I need loan very, very, very quick. And I was fired at the head office, Pretoria. But I knew that the process of being removed from the system is going to be long. Let me just come quickly and take this money. By the time they removed me from the system, at least I had capital. And I went to Maponya quickly and then the money was deposited into my account. I was like, yeah. They can
so
do
good
anything.
for Capitec, although they didn't really know.
But they confirmed with HR.
But Rafilwe, if you didn't have a formal job, would you ever have been able to get the startup capital?
I guess, because I rely much on myself, because I perceive myself as a leader that has to come with ways.
So you'd have found a way to
get that money. And or rather I will have partnered with somebody, because much of who I am depends on me. I have been led when I was young to be the leader of tomorrow. So much time I question myself that what is the way? So I don't think I will have been stuck.
You would have found a way.
I would have found a way.
How much did you borrow?
50K.
50K?
Yes.
And how much did you have to repay? How quickly did you have to repay that?
I got 50K. We bought bakery equipment and I started baking. And then we were making massive losses because I don't understand the business of manufacturing. But the most interesting part was that I wanted to see this bread going on. That's it. And the company that fired me, I think 3 months after they fired me, then they reinstated me back to the office. Then I got a way of paying back the loan. And I got these two people that were doing baking together. They were baking, I was selling. And when we started, we were using a bicycle to deliver. Because I'm always coming with appealing ways of doing things. I'm not a traditional way. Actually, I'm not a person who follows the tradition in business. I want my ways because sometimes you're coming from a desperate situation where you need something nice or opposite from everybody.
And I think it's important. You were baking in your backyard, back room.
Yeah, and that type of back room that we're baking from,
which is a tiny little piece of space in the back of
very small.
The White City has tiny properties with concrete roofs, and yeah.
And that room was so
it wasn't a bakery
at all. It's a back room that I rented from my grandfather to. It's my shelter. Let me put it that way. And I had to remove everything and go back to my granny to stay with them. I was sleeping in the kitchen at the time. And then this room was converted.
Not on a bed.
He put his bedroom, his one room backroom bedroom, turned it into the bakery, and then went and started sleeping in the kitchen in the granny's house.
It's a tough road, but now let's fast forward.
It was exciting.
Of course, that's what entrepreneurship's about. But then you get locked down. So
Yeah.
now you're doing well, reading your story in Kasonomics.
I think you were selling quite a lot of bread by the time lockdown.
Yeah, because the lockdown was coming with much restrictions that...
But before lockdown, you were doing well.
Yeah, before lockdown, we're doing well. I think we're baking about not more than 1,000, about 1,005 or so.
Loaves of bread
Loaves a day.
That sounds a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is a lot. And the demand was going
Still
high.
from the back room.
Were you baking around the clock?
Yeah, we have a night shift. We also have a day shift. So you'll find people about 10 waiting for bread outside. Sometimes they buy it while it's still in the oven. So that's how exciting it was, because of, I think, what made me or us different from everybody is that I invested a little bit time that what is it that we can do to be different from everybody, you know? Because as I've said, I started developing myself in terms of understanding business, finding a ways that unique selling proposition, how can be different from everybody. So I invested quite a lot of time. I started cutting off watching television, disconnect DSTV, and really paying attention to myself and business, reading much books and whatsoever, because I wanted to be somebody that can grow for years.
What was your unique selling proposition?
I think it was freshness. At the time, we were using some sort of ingredient that has much of shelf life, whereby the competitors around, they were just baking bread. And then for us, we wanted to sell bread that can be used as breakfast, lunch, or supper. You can buy it in the evening, utilize it tomorrow. So those are the unique selling proposition that we invested in them. And people were aware that, no, this one is different comparing to the others. And we instilled and we paid much attention to such things.
Tell me about lockdown.
Lockdown, when it came, we were told that actually the restrictions were massive. White Seat, as he said, it's one of those notorious township. I remember the MEC for safety. He once said about township and Zola that they're going to be massive police around. And yes, it was. And then the business were taking, my business electoral was taking a toll. And then I wanted strategic ways of how we're selling. But at the time, the business was too much traditional. There was nothing really exciting about our business anymore. And mostly I like to come with nice way or nice innovative ways, or how can we stand out from the rest. And then when the lockdown came quickly, and then I was like, no, okay, we can take advantage of the situation. Obviously, we have to register with CIPC to be allowed to roam around with our truck that we're selling essential product. But this is not enough. Then I started coming with selling methods that are nice and exciting. And then we bought 2 trolleys. And then I got the boys from the neighborhood and I spoken to them that this is how you're going to sell, have your sanitizer with you, take this essential certificate, roam around with it. And then...
Did you have any problem with the police?
Partly so, because of they had this certificate that we're selling essential product, and people liked it because we were not giving allowance to roam around because of there was police and soldiers around the community. So we were taking advantage of that situation, but people liked it. And then quickly we bought another 4 additional trolleys.
So I did ask Rafilwe at the time, I was like, why don't you just steal the trolleys from the Pick and Pay or the ShopRite? And he was like, no, they have to be solid trolleys. He didn't want to just use any trolleys. So he designed the trolleys himself, basically.
So you made a plan.
Yeah.
And you overcame that challenge. But now we've got another challenge in South Africa. As we're sitting here, we've got load shedding. I'm sure I just imagine a bakery, load shedding must be
So maybe
desperate.
just to add that. So since lockdown, Refiloe went to eventually having three bakeries in different places and doing more than 2,000 loaves of bread a day.
With the trolley system, because of it was growing massively. We had about 15 boys who were selling bread every day. And individually carry about 30 to 50 loaves a day. And then how do they sell? It was their responsibility, but we have our culture, obviously, that we're going to teach you about. You must be clean because you're selling bread. And then you must leave our premises by 7 o'clock. Make sure by 12 o'clock you're back, because we must keep our bread fresh. So those people, when they go on the street and sell, they became business people by themselves, because of now they were selling bread to other businesses, which is they use bread for their own goodies and stuff.
Quarters or whatever.
Quarters and stuff. So they became sales reps of our business.
Just explain a quarter.
Say that.
A quarter?
Quarter in other language is a panicha, which is the bread's going to be divided into 2-4. Going to put
slab chips,
avianas and palonis and stuff. So it's
big market and delicious.
Yeah, huge market. We built that massive Parmalat cheese slice business, 3 billion rand odd business for Parmalat in the quarter sector. But I just want to go back to, I think at one stage you had 25 staff.
Yes.
You employed 25 people.
What's happening is this: we had this trolley system that is growing. We have this bakery that we have to keep up with the demand, and then it was too much pressure for us. We had to rent out the store. I think it's 3 kilometers away from us. Then we're baking on the other side. We bake on the other side because of obviously using entry-level equipment. We can't use industrial machines within the township ESCOM thing. So with that, we're able to keep up with the demand, but the demand was keeping up with us at the time. Then we have to rent another store last year, June. And then quickly after we did that, that's where the problem started kicking in, which is electricity problem, which is load shedding. It kicked us very bad, very bad. It went to as far as now closing the other outlet, trying to keep up with load shedding times and things like that.
What happens when you're baking bread and the electricity goes off?
It depends, but we're going to have losses with what you're doing because of the process of baking bread. I'll just divide it into 3 quick steps. You take your dough, you're going to put it with your mixer. After you spin it, obviously the dough become ripe to the point that you can cut it and put it in the proofer. A proofer it's something that, what is it? I just forgot the word, but you put your dough inside the proofer, then it's gonna raise to a certain level. So that process is a very sensitive one, because if something goes off, that dough is gonna mold. Then you have to take it and throw it away, because if you persist baking bread with type of a dough, the bread is gonna be a little bit sour. Then it now changes our picture, because people have a certain perception of our bread. So that's where the problems will start kicking in.
How do you overcome it?
Hey man, it's been a tough journey, but we spent about 5 years running our business. But I think with the maturity level, with how I grew as an individual, I had to understand some things. But I've read much books that told me that something can go bad in business at any time. So I was taught to be too much futuristic to really deal with the problems before they can even arrive at the time. So my mind at the time, it was like, no, this is one of those things that I read about, that something can happen. Then you must keep up and be strong. As much as it's a very tough journey, but you find ways on how can you stand and fight.
But how did you? How did you overcome load shedding?
We haven't really surpassed that situation.
Yeah.
But what we did quickly, we cutted stuff. We lost business, obviously, because of it was load shedding. After load shedding, it was lootings that happened in Gauteng and KZN, which is one of our customers were affected by such. And you're going to start to cut costs, cut the staff, and you cutting the staff. Every staff of us, we have investment in him or her, because of this trolley seller has an amount of money that he comes with on everyday basis. So we have to, find ways on how can we keep the business going, but while we're still trying to grow business strategically on the other side.
And I think you said to me you're planning your turnaround strategy.
Yeah, that's where we are.
Looking
because
at gas and maybe other options.
The load shedding it's semi-permanent in a way. So it's an external factor that you don't have power over. The only control that we have is internal factor, which is my staff, my business, but the external factors I don't really have power over. So now I'm planning on the external factor, that what we do with this kind of situation. So I've spoken to different people from different walks of life in terms of bakery equipment that we can, invest in. Then they are the one that produced recently, which is they can use fuel. The other one, they can use solar. So that's the strategy that we are on, trying to understand.
Exploring it.
Exploit it, and how can we survive for the future, because of our business has to sustain, to be sustained.
It's an extraordinary story. And just a couple of things I'd like to add there. Steve Jobs went to university for 6 months and he started Apple. Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard and he started Facebook. Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard University after a year and he started Microsoft. So the idea of having to have tertiary education is not consistent with success in entrepreneurship. It does appear, GG, that if I was sitting in government and I was allocating to these 500 black industrialists who can show models into the future, you'd have to think that Rafilwe would be right up there, given the challenges he's had.
And you know, Alec, Rafilwe has been trying to get sources of income, not income,
Capital.
support from various kind of state options, and it's been very difficult. I don't want to go into detail, but you know, I've facilitated some introductions and kind of been turned down and so on and so forth, which I just think is a tragedy. Some of it's still in the pipeline, but as Rafilwe said to me yesterday, you know, these things, they take a long time and it's not really the
Not
thing.
for everyone.
He doesn't have the time, but yeah, it's a tragedy that there's not more support.
Just to close off with your dream, let's just say you got through the door, you got into Patel's office, and he knows your story now because he's watched this discussion, and he said, how can I help you become a role model? What would your dream be?
You know, quickly, with that, I think I need to add something on that. Last year, I was the only one from the township to be taken to Netherlands with Investec. The journey was about to be taught and to be taken globally to understand the importance of food. So I think with what we do in business has really shown a solid impact, being the only one from the township to be taken to the Netherlands with other business people coming from the restaurants and things like that. So has massive impact in me and my staff and my community. But coming back to the business, the township actually has a permanent problem, social permanent problem that can never be solved anytime soon. Now, the type of business that we run is a very essential thing that this community need. Apart from that, business has to make money. But us as a bread manufacturers, we play a very huge role.
What's your dream? What's your dream? Would you like to go to Mill Park and take over Albany Bakery there?
Not
Could you run it better?
necessarily. The market that we're focusing on is a niche market that doesn't have affordability to buy premium products. So now we want to establish a business or bread manufacturing company that plays a role in terms of solidifying the community to afford essential products on everyday basis.
And create those businesses of those people who deliver.
And also work with other businesses that depend much on what they do.
Do you know what Cyril Ramaphosa's very first business was?
No.
And he's a billionaire. It was a company called Northern Bakeries up in the north of the country, which is an interesting point. So you are walking in footsteps of those who've been incredibly successful. I look forward to talking to you in a few years' time when you're listed on the stock market. Isn't that an option?
Absolutely, why not?
And where do you think Rafilwe is going to end up, say, in 5-10 years from now?
Look, you know, I think that kind of what Rafilwe is alluding to is the sense of rootedness in the community and you know, the people he's employing as kind of locals and it's not just an employee thing. So I think that the real opportunity is and where Rafilwe will probably go and is really about building these grassroots-based businesses where he's supporting the community, supplying them with food, but also creating jobs and so on. And if you know, I think the opportunity is, as I've said, with all my kind of stuff around the informal economy, is the opportunity to really empower that and just make that so much bigger, because that's going to solve jobs and incomes and the economy. You know, stock exchange, yes, next, but I think that the real power is going to be scaling that within townships all over.
It's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? Well, it's our pleasure to have had GG Alcock and Refiloe Rantekoa, entrepreneur from the townships who can teach us all many lessons. I'm Alec Hogg from BizNews.com.